About moms today, though, because it is Mom's Day, and I want to just I began thinking about this message, realizing as I was looking at it again yesterday. I started writing it last Monday, but as I got to the end of the week, I began looking at it, and yesterday I was going through it again and realized that it's not really so much a sermon. It's actually more of a tribute. It's just a tribute to you moms. It's a tribute to who you are and what you are in our lives, and what you mean to us. We don't really say it often enough, and we don't tell you that often enough. And sometimes as kids we yell at you, and then quite often we're sorry that we did that, but we do. And then other times we just realize, you know, as we're small, there's no one like Mom. When we get into our teen lives, our teen years, we don't want to have anything to do with Mom. And then by the time we get to be in young adults, moms are getting smarter. And by the time we get to be a little bit older, there's nobody like Mom. It's just an amazing thing. But moms are just an amazing person. This morning, I want to talk about Mom. Basically, I want to talk about Mom, who is Mom, and what is Mom, and all those kinds of things. And I was looking at the scriptures, and I remembered that this was the theme, the light of the world. And so I looked at Matthew 5, 14, 15, and it says there, you're the light of the world, like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand where it gives light to everyone in the house. And I began realizing that in most homes, Mom is that light. And I'm not putting the dads down, and I'm really not. In a few weeks, it'll be Dad's Day, and we'll give honor and tribute to him as well. But today, Mom is it. And Mom, you are the light of the world. There is a position that Mom holds that Dad does not. There's a position that moms have that dads can't fulfill. There's that spot in our lives that moms hold that dads just can't find it and get to it. But I wanted to look at that. I looked at that scripture and I wanted to rewrite it. So I rewrote it to make it sound like this in light of the light of the family. It says, Mom, you are the light of the world, like a city on a hilltop that will not be hidden. A mom is a light, a lamp, and no one can cover that light. It is to be placed on a stand, and it will give light to the whole family. So this morning, I'm going to light two candles. I want to light the one candle that represents Jesus, because I don't ever want to do anything that would overpower or overspeak him. Because to be honest with you, we're here today because of him. We're here today because of what he's done in our lives. We're here today because as a church, that's who we are. We're here today because of Jesus, and Jesus is the light of the world. Even though in this scripture he's talking about Christians and talking about you and as being the light to tell others who Jesus is, but it's all about him. But I also want to light another candle today, and this is for Mom. This is for every mom that's in this church this morning, and every mom that's not, that you're thinking about. Every mom that you have today that maybe you can't be with, and you'd love to be with her, and maybe you'll be making a phone call later. I remember just last night, we were sitting there, and Rosie was saying, she said to me, she said, where's my phone? And I said, well, it's sitting right beside you. And she finally realized it and picked it up, and I said, why? What are you going to do? Well, I'm waiting for Kenny and Robbie to call me. And I said, why, honey? She said, well, because tomorrow's Mother's Day, and they always call me. And I said, they'll be calling you, but it probably won't be until tomorrow. Well, she's probably very excitedly anticipating the phone call from her two oldest sons. She gets to spend it with these two guys later this afternoon, and she's excited about that. But the other one's in in Montana, and the other one, the oldest one, is in Illinois, so they can't be with her today. She's waiting excitedly to hear from those two sons. And so maybe you can't be with your mom today, but you can call her. Don't forget to do that. Call her and say, Happy Mom's Day, Mother. I really wanted to let you know how much I love you. Wish I could be with you, but just make sure you do that. There's just something special about this. There's something special about lighting these candles, representing Jesus, representing Mom. And because Mom is a light. She's a light to your life. I think the other thing that I want to do today is to convince you how important Mom is. Maybe you say, oh, well, my mom's, yeah, she's okay. No, your mom is a light. she is the glue that holds the whole thing together. She really is. Dads, I love you. And husbands, dads, I love you. And I admire most of you today. Most of you. There's a few out there that so get to it. Get with it. But no, I admire you guys today. I really do. But there is something about a mom that dads don't quite measure up to. We try. Oh, we try. But we don't quite get there. But Mom, there's just something about you. And I want to share with you some of those things today. Because I want you to know this morning that, first of all, this light that I just lit, this candle that I lit, represents a mother's love. Helen Steiner Rice, great poet, died a couple of years ago. Does anybody know who Helen Steiner Rice is? I think she died in the 1800s, so more than a couple of years ago. She wrote this. She's got some wonderful poetry, and this is one. What is a mother? It takes a mother's love to make a house a home, a place to be remembered no matter where we roam. It takes a mother's patience to bring a child upright, and her courage and her cheerfulness to make a dark day bright. It takes a mother's thoughtfulness to mend the heart's deep hurts, and her skill and endurance to mend little socks and shirts. It takes a mother's kindness to forgive us when we err, to sympathize in trouble, to bow our head in prayer. It takes a mother's wisdom to recognize our needs and to give us reassurance by her loving words and deeds. You know, I've preached on love a million times in all these years. And I tried my best whenever I've preached on love to define it, describe it. You know, I've tried to tell people about what love is and how love works and all those kinds of things. In fact, when I was getting ready to preach my very first sermon, way back there, I was a layman in the church, a very young man. God called me to preach, scared to death, so nervous, never been so nervous in my life. And I was working on my sermon that week, and I got to tell you, my first sermon, I worked on that sermon. I bet I worked on that sermon for 50 hours. Man, I got up there. I was going to really, 5 minutes later, I was done. Best sermon I ever preached. But I got 5 minutes in, and I'm at the end of my notes, and I thought, well, now what do I do? You know. But in putting that sermon together, I worked and I studied and I prayed and I thought and I read the Bible. I didn't know what to preach on. Our pastor had asked me to preach, and that was my first sermon. And oh man, I wanted to run. And I called a friend of ours in the church. He was my spiritual brother. He was such a great, great man. He's in heaven. And Brother Reno Sieben was his name. And he was always there for us. And I called Reno. And I said, Reno, you know, I'm preaching Sunday. And he said, yeah, I know. I'm looking forward to it. That made me even more nervous. I said, what should I preach on? I just don't even know what to preach on. And he said, well, I'll tell you what. He said, I'll be praying for you, but you can never go wrong if you preach on love. Well, I probably did. I don't remember for sure, but I probably did. But at the same time, it was preach on love. And I have preached on love. But this morning, I got to tell you, after all those sermons on love, and as I was even putting this sermon together, it dawned on me that if you want to really preach on love and describe it and define it, all you've got to do is just get up and say, Mom. Because that's really what it is. Mom is the greatest definition of love. It's the greatest definition we can give it. I think about my mom, and I can only tell you this story because it's about me. I can't tell you stories about you. I don't know your stories. You know your stories. We all have a story. And I have stories. I'm a storyteller. Tim Conkergood tells me, he said, the thing about your stories is that you tell 5 stories within one story. And he said, and he must be here today. And eventually, he said, you do get to the end of that first story. Well, that is true, but I'm going to really make an exception to that rule. I'm going to tell you this story, but I won't tell you 5 other stories within it. But I want to tell you the story about my mom. I want to tell you describe her love, and as an example of how your mom loves you. When I was a little kid, when I was 9 years old, I broke my right leg. my hip. And I went to the hospital, and in those days they didn't put you in surgery and put a pin in it and send you home, you know. In those days, way back there in those days, they'd put you in a bed with a big traction above your head and big weights at the end. They'd put a big old thing on your leg, and they'd put it up in this harness type deal, and they'd put a weight on it that would pull that bone back together, and then you'd lay there for 6 weeks. And I mean, you'd lay there for 6 weeks. And you couldn't get out of bed, and they'd do that until that bone just sat there like this and healed itself. And so I went into the hospital, broke my leg and broke my hip, and I had to go to a doctor that wasn't our doctor. Now, I got to tell you, this guy's name, it was a little fishy. We shouldn't have gone to him in the first place when his name was Dr. Fish. That should have told us something. We couldn't go to my doctor, our regular doctor. His name was Dr. Arp. I don't know if that fits. And so, but we went to see Dr. Fish, and had to do it because it was Sunday. Our doctor wasn't around or whatever, so we saw this guy. Put me in the hospital, treated me just like a regular break. Got out of the hospital, went through the body cast and went through the crutches and went through all the junk. It was months. I finally got out of the hospital. All was good. I'm running around. I'm walking around. About 2 months later, my brother and I were on the bed, and we thought all was well. And we were wrestling. Bob was 5 years older than I am. And we were on the bed wrestling, and I got my right leg between the wall and the bed. And I twisted. And my leg broke again. Same hip, same spot. Going to the doctor, we went to the doctor, and the doctor saw our doctor now and brought in a specialist. And that doctor said to my mom, he said, your son's got a problem. This is not a regular break. He said he's got a cyst in that bone, and that bone won't grow, and there's a hole in that bone, and as he's getting older and all of this kind of thing, it won't withstand his weight anymore, and it's just going to break. He said we've got to take him and fix that, but he said it's going to be a long thing, long seizure, and he said so, and he said and expect it to be very expensive. Well, we didn't have a lot of money, and mom was a cleaning lady and took in laundry and did whatever she could. Dad was not around. They were divorced, and he was in Minnesota, and we're in Illinois. And so in the process of all of that, Mom said, I don't know what I'm going to do. So another